Christy, let me bring you into this on. I often think about the pullout from Afghanistan, and we were showing some of the pictures of the chaos of that as a real turning point for President Biden, right? He had kind of come in riding high. We were sort of fighting back, trying to beat back the COVID pandemic. He had defeated Donald Trump. But ever since then, public sentiment really turned against him in the wake of that. You could see it in the polling. And honestly, the biggest sort of demon they're battling as they try to win re-election is the perception that President Biden is weak. And I'm curious how you think about how this plays into the bigger picture and what the White House is doing to try to fight back against that, especially as the president now has, multiple foreign policy crises on his plate.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think that for the most part, most Americans don't think all that much about foreign policy. And this has certainly been a presidency in which there have been several different moments that have really forced Americans to think about it. First Afghanistan, then obviously for a long time, continuing Ukraine, and now certainly with, Israel and Gaza. And you've also seen that sort of harden along partisan lines, for example. That's something obviously that's happening right now with the Gaza crisis, where there had always been, I don't want to take this too far, of course, but, daylight between support for Israel and support for Netanyahu. But now, it's finally something in which Democrats are actually able to sort of say that out loud. Republicans are, standing strong with Netanyahu. You're seeing this sort of partisanship develop that hadn't been there before.
Well, so Tara, speaking of Netanyahu, Republicans on the Hill are going to hear today from Benjamin Netanyahu in what is, basically a political statement, especially considering that Chuck Schumer is out there basically saying Israel should hold new elections based on the policy. How do you see that cutting?
I mean, he was actually supposed to speak with them last week before Senator Schumer made that statement at their retreat. But I do think, it's starting to fall along partisan lines, support for Israel versus, liberal Democratic, opposition to Israel.
Well, I mean, I think we should say there are some people who support Israel's right to defend itself while still criticizing Israeli policy. But continue.
No, definitely. I just think that this has become an issue that I'm sure Donald Trump will try to exploit. But the White House pretty much remains the same. Joe Biden has told Netanyahu that he doesn't support interfering in the elections, but they're trying to put pressure on him. I don't know exactly how it's going to play in the election, though. There's still a number of months ahead, 6 months ahead.
Yeah, very challenging conversation. Quick last word?
I'll just say, I was at the State Department that ran for office, right? Voters often don't rank foreign policy as the top issue. But when you have Afghanistan, when you have what's happening in Israel, Ukraine, and now Haiti, add that to the crisis, it gives a feeling that the world is on fire and there's uncertainty, and that plays into the election.
That's right.
Congressman, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you
I really
so much.
appreciate you being here. All right, I'll leave you with this.